really, since our site focuses on getting young Americans, involved and aware about the debt, really, first we'd like to know, why should young Americans care about the debt?
I believe they should care, and I think everybody should care, because it goes right to the question of the economic security of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Young people should especially care, because if this debt goes to the levels that are now anticipated, that would put a crushing burden on them. It would also weaken the economy at the very time they want to be financing their kids' education or buying a home or purchasing a car. So it would have a direct effect on the quality of their lives.
Mm-hmm. So when you say, crushing effect, are we talking 50% taxes? Are we talking a lower standard of living?
Yeah, we're talking at its bottom, we're talking about a lower standard of living. Virtually everyone agrees, if we stay on the current trend line, we will have a debt that is 400% of the gross domestic product of the United States. Already we're financing most of our debt through foreign entities. If we had to finance, and that's at a level that's roughly 100% of GDP, gross debt. Publicly held debt is in the 60s, 62% of GDP,
right,
thereabouts, but rapidly rising. If we had to try to finance a debt of 400% of GDP, that would threaten to crater the value of the dollar. That would put Congress and the President in a position of having to decide to do some combination of big increases in taxes, significant spending cuts, and higher interest rates. And it's likely we'd have to be doing that in an environment of a weak economy. That would only make a weak economy even weaker, meaning less economic growth, fewer jobs, fewer economic opportunities for the people who would be responsible for that debt. And of course, the people who would be responsible would be the citizens of the United States.
Yeah, so we're talking about some real tough choices here. I know in some recent budget hearings you've mentioned an internal exercise that you've gone through looking at ways to reduce the debt, and I think you've said quite a few times that it's sobering. Can you share a little bit about the exercise, sort of what you've done with it, and really what's it going to take? What are these huge obstacles to do something meaningful?
Look, at the end of the day, what I believe is we're going to have to reform the entitlements, Social Security, but especially the health accounts. The health accounts are by far the biggest part of the problem on the spending side of the equation. I believe we're also going to have to reform the revenue system, because as I calculated, our revenue system is only collecting about 80% of what's owed. If we just collected what's owed under the current system, we wouldn't need any tax increase. We wouldn't have a structural deficit if we were collecting what's actually owed. Unfortunately, this system is hemorrhaging revenue to offshore tax havens, to abusive tax shelters, to the so-called tax gap, the difference between what's owed and what's paid. So these things are contributing to the problem, as is the extraordinary growth of spending on the entitlement side of the equation. And the entitlements, as you know, are programs like Medicare, like Social Security. But I want to emphasize, Medicare is much, much bigger than Social Security, than the shortfall in Social Security.
So we talk about reforming entitlements, and often with Social Security we hear that we're going to need to raise the retirement age, or maybe pare down benefits for those over a certain income level that maybe don't need all the extra increases that Social Security provides. But Medicare is so much more complicated, and we
Can
just
I just address the Medicare?
Sure, that's what I was going to go
Yeah,
next.
that's what I
We
thought.
just passed a new Medicare bill,
Yeah.
and it's going to reduce deficits by 1.2 trillion over the next 20 years or so.
Right.
But we really need to reduce them by 38-40 trillion dollars, and so we've expanded the
not
system.
that much over that period.
But over the longer haul.
Yeah, we have a liability, an unfunded liability that's of that magnitude,
Right.
but that's a 75-year
Right.
calculation.
But
But let me just emphasize, to me, the biggest opportunity to save money in Medicare and the other health care accounts is to better coordinate the care of the chronically ill. The chronically ill are people with multiple serious conditions. Right now, 5% of Medicare beneficiaries use 50% of the budget. That's our major opportunity. We have found in one test with 20,000 patients, by better coordinating their care, you not only got big savings, but you got better health care outcomes for those people. And the reason is our current system does a very poor job of coordinating the care for those people. As a result, they are taking way too many prescription drugs, some of which are actually counterproductive for them. They're subject to multiple tests that are repetitive and unnecessary. And this was found in the Dartmouth study. I know we got to go to make this vote.